Hey everyone, I'm here today to share with you tips for getting your waterleaf seeds to germinate. A lot of you have been struggling with getting your waterleaf seeds to germinate out here in the USA, and I've been growing waterleaves for so many years, so I thought I'd share with you a couple of tips to at least improve your chances of getting your water leaf seeds to germinate. So water leaves are a culturally meaningful vegetable for many of us from Africa. We use it to cook different types of soups, and it's possible to grow water leaves out here. There are just a couple of things that you need to do. Here's tip number one. Tip number one is to make sure that you have viable seeds. Without viable seeds, all of the rest of the things that you're trying to do is in vain. And if you've been here, you know I always talk about True Love seeds. They do have water leaf seeds, guys. They have water leaf, authentic water leaf seeds. In fact, I've tried to grow water leaf seeds for them. Why I recommend True Love seeds so much is because they test their seeds for germination. They're transparent with that information. It's out there on the website. So if you're looking for water leaf seeds and you want water leaf seeds with some guarantee that it will germinate, get your water leaf seeds from True Love Seeds. I'm going to put my link in the description box. Full disclosure, if you click on my link, they do send a few pennies my way, and that's not why I'm recommending them. I will recommend them even if, you know, they were not giving me a couple of cents for every seed pack that you buy. Anyway, so these particular water leaf seeds have been tested, and it has about an 85% germination rate, meaning for every 10 seeds that you plant, about 8.5 will germinate. For every 100 seeds, about 85 of them will germinate. And this seed pack has about 200 to 250 seeds. So this is enough water leaf seeds for you trying to just grow vegetables in your backyard. Here's tip number two. Water leaf is very temperature dependent as far as getting it to germinate and as far as getting it to grow. So if you are going to start your seeds and it is not warm yet in your area, meaning nighttime temperatures are at least like 60 degrees Fahrenheit and then it gets hot during the day, please don't try to start your seeds outside because it is just something that's not going to work. If it's still cold in your area, you want to start your seeds indoors, and you definitely want to use heat mat because it warms up the soil, and that warmth is what water leaves require for germination. Like I said, my garden is here in Houston, Texas, Zone 9A. It's hot now outdoors, so I can start my water leaf seeds outdoors. Even then, I still recommend that you do not start your seeds directly in ground. This is tip number three now. I'm just flowing into tip number three. Tip number three, always start your water leaf seeds in a container. That way you can control the environment better. You can control what is happening better. Don't take your precious water leaf seeds, unless you really have a lot of them and you don't care, and go and throw them in the garden. You know, a couple of things might happen. Ants might eat them. It might still be too cold. You might bury them too deep and they would never germinate and you're wondering what is happening. So always start your water leaf seeds in a container. That way you can control what is happening. The next tip is the soil to use to start your seeds. Now you want to use potting mix soil. I use potting mix soil. I don't use seed starting mix. I use potting mix because potting mix soil has nutrients in it already, and I'm going to be growing my water leaves in here for a little bit. However, when you use that potting mix soil, for example, Miracle Grow, make sure that you take some time to, you know, pick out any big particles like wood particles in the soil before planting your water leaf seeds. Reason being that the water leaf seed is very tiny, and if it lands on a huge chunk of wood, it might just sit there and never germinate. I will show you how to do all of this in a moment. All right, guys, let's get our seeds in the ground. So this is my potting mix soil. So like I said, we want to just, maybe if you see some large pieces of wood in here, pick them out. You know, you want the soil as fine as possible. Pick those chunky pieces of wood out. So that's what we have. Okay. This is already wet, but I'm just going to go ahead and water this again before planting. So if you bought your soil from the store and it had not been hydrated, you want it just wet. Okay. Again, remember to put holes at the bottom for drainage. You see how it's draining? So make sure there are holes at the bottom. Okay. Now we're going to get our water leaf seeds. The seeds, it's extremely tiny. And this is where most people get it wrong. They bury the seeds too deep. When you have tiny seeds, guys, super tiny seeds, you don't want to bury the seeds, because you bury them too deep, they will never germinate. Okay, so I'm just gonna try as much as possible to put it on top, spread it out as much as I can. As much as I can. Some people mix the seeds with seed starting mix just so it can disperse more easily. You see. So we're just going to try to get this in as many places as we can. Okay, next we're going to just press it in so that the seeds make contact with the soil. We are not going to bury it. Press it in so the seeds can make contact with the soil. Do not bury the seeds with additional soil. They will not germinate. So that's what you do. Press it in. Okay. So we're going to look for a spot in the garden that gets a lot of sunlight, but we are not going to leave it open like this, because when it rains, it can just mess up this whole thing, you know, heavy rains, heavy spring showers. So what we want to do is cover this up with something transparent. Now, if you have a large trash bag that is transparent like this one, clear, you can use it to cover your setup. But since I have this humidity dome, I'm going to put it over like so. So that's what we have. I have my dome over it. It lets in sunlight, keeps the rain out, traps moisture, and we'll see how long it takes for us to get germination.